My drug of choice was cocaine. I got hooked right away. I thought I was taking the pain away, but all I ever seen was partying. And that's what I thought I wanted. So I just grew up bottling everything in, getting into fights, drinking, cheating, stealing, using. But no one ever asked me about what was going on. Why are you drunk? Why are you a cokehead? Why are you always cheating? I went to the bank and I asked for a $7,000 loan. And they said, we'll do even better, Shalen, we'll give you 20 grand. And I remember just walking in and sitting down on the chair, said, I'm done. That was the day that I signed the papers to go to treatment. I wasn't going until July, and I was like, what am I going to do in these next couple months here?
I've had now, you don't know where to go.
All right, what's going on, everybody? That was tonight's guest, Shalen Fox. I'm Daniel Unmanageable, and this is Hard Knocks Talks, coming at you from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Treaty Number 6 territory, and the traditional homeland of the Métis people. Before we bring in Shalen, I just want to let our viewers and listeners know to stick around to the end for a sneak peek at next week's guest. I forget his name right now. It should be here, but it's not. Oh, Paul Hawley. There it is. Stick around to the end. We had a conversation with Paul Hawley earlier this week. We captured some clips from it, so stick around. And if you want to catch a reminder for next week's show, there's a featured link at the bottom of your screen. You can tap that link, learn a little bit more about next week's show. If you tap going, you will be reminded, so there is a better chance that you will show up on time. Having said that, let's bring in Shalen. What's up, Shalen?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. I was a little worried that I forgot next week's guest, and I also forgot to write it down, but we got through it, and here we are. How are you feeling tonight?
Good. Just during the moment, I was going to tell you that we don't really have to worry about next week because we're enjoying what's going on here today, and that's how I think. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's something I always have to remind myself too.
I worry about 10 years from now. I don't know. There's a saying that I have. It's like, if I have nothing going wrong in my life, I like to wander off into the future until I find something.
What are you wandering to?
I don't know, man. It's different every day. I'm a fickle creature, my friend. I really am. Right, Donna?
Yes, he is.
That's right. Is there anything that you'd like to say before we get started tonight?
No, just wanted to thank you for having me on here, and that's the second time that I heard that intro, and it doesn't. It just sends chills down my back, and brings back some memories that sometimes I forget that I have, and it's good to talk about them. And this is another chance to heal. So thank you for having me on here.
You're very welcome. And having said that, let's jump in.
This is Hard Knocks Talks.
Okay, before we dive in, I just want to let our viewers and listeners know that tonight's live production is premier sponsored by the FASD Network of Saskatchewan, and we're going to hear just a little bit more from them in a little while. But first, Shalen, we learned a little bit about you in the intro there. You're a teacher, correct?
Yes, yeah. I've been teaching 12, 13 years, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is my first year in the city. I was in Sturgeon Lake for 3 years, and then I went back home to the Battlefords for 8, and then I'm here for this year, so 12. Yeah, 12. Not a math teacher though.
And so when you were at the deepest part of your addiction, you were teaching, right?
Yeah, I got early on, especially when I was out in Sturgeon Lake, and then went back to Battleford. That's where that's where it was going down the hill there.
Did you ever have any like challenges teaching? Like, were you showing up to school lit? Like, what did that look like for you?
No, just lots of, especially early on in Sturgeon Lake, just lots of days that I wasn't going in, but also there was lots of closures for the school, just because the school was used for like a funerals, or if the weather was like a certain temperature, like the buses weren't allowed to run, so that just gave us a day off. So I remember that first year, I think there was 40 days of closure, right? So
Holy cow.
when we knew that was there, that was a green light to go out and
Mm-hmm.
took full advantage of it in an
Mm-hmm.
unhealthy way.
Giver.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and
So
yeah, and but then a little bit later on, it just kind of um, thought I was masking it. I guess thought I was doing okay, but
mm-hmm.
obviously I wasn't, and people started to speak up later on.
Mm. So where did this all get started for you? Like was there a lot of drinking at home and a lot of like using or whatever growing up?
You know what? My mom's been sober about 30 years, but I do have a memory of her drinking, and that was always in the back of my mind. But my mom's been sober for the man, I'm for maybe over 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
But early on, I do remember those drinking days.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom liked to party, and my dad's still an alcoholic today. So that was something that my mom tried to keep away from us, but
Mm-hmm.
just being around with our family on our dad's side, and my grandparents drank at the time too, and my aunties and my uncle, so it was around us, but my mom tried her best to keep it away. But um,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of tough when we're so close with everybody that you're able to
Yeah.
see it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you grow up in Sturgeon Lake?
No, actually, I'm from Sweetgrass. I'm from the Battleford area, so
Okay.
that's where I grew up, and bounced around a little bit there when we were younger. But Battleford has been where I've been most of my life.
Yeah. How old were you the first
Yeah.
time you got loaded? And was it
Uh,
like something like you couldn't wait to do? Like were you like looking forward to getting loaded the first time?
yeah, you know what? I was starting to see it more with my family and some of my friends who were starting to experiment with it, and it was great. The summer of grade seven, going into grade eight, finally had a chance, and we had a bottle of Weisers, and there's about
Oh
four or five of
no.
us. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh
Middle of the afternoon, and straight, and just started passing it
no.
around, and yeah, no, it wasn't.
just just got at it, hey?
Yeah, yeah, just went off the deep end right away,
So how'd
and
that
that was
go?
something that I was feeling sick, and I was scared of my mom, and I'm still scared of my mom today. So that was didn't want to go home, but
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
went home, snuck in the house. But then all these feelings started to come in from suppressed memories, and I didn't know about those, and I'm still learning that about that today. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, so the first time drinking was at that age, and then drugs didn't come till later though.
So when you got loaded the first time there and you went home, had your mom already sobered up?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So my mom was sober probably I'd say about 5 or 6 years at that time. But my mom is one of those. She just quit drinking. She quit cold
Okay.
right on a New Year's Eve or right on like a New Year's Day. But never ever talked about anything. Like she's still in that same mentality. Doesn't talk about anything.
Yeah.
So lots of things were just hidden up still in there. So
Mm-hmm.
still come out in different ways. Yeah. So
Yeah.
unhealthy ways, but that's her own journey, right? And that's where she's comfortable with.
Did you when you came home loaded, did her being sober play a factor into like the fear you were feeling trying to sneak around?
I just knew that my mom did not want us to drink,
Yeah.
because my dad he was in and out of our lives at that time, but later on, like that grade seven year, I had to call the cops on my dad, and that was something that was very tough. I
Mm-hmm.
woke up in the middle of the night and I heard crying, screaming, and I came out of the bedroom and my dad was choking my mom on the wall early in the morning, right? And just went running and called my auntie, and she said call the cops. So calling the cops on your dad was, but never ever talked about it after. Like my mom never came and checked on me.
Just
And I
like
was too scared to ask her yeah, like if she was okay. There was just no communication. It was just kind of go back to bed.
how old were
And
you?
that was my grade a 7 year. So that that's where it kind of stemmed, just with a little bit of things building up.
Uh-huh. So you think like that
Yeah.
was sort of like the beginning of your adventure?
Yeah, just you know what, and I always there's some other things too. I always wondered other things in life. Like I always wondered because my last name's Fox. Everybody else is a Tipon, and I was like, why am I a Fox and why am I a Tipon? Something just feels off. Like why is my mom so hard on me? And I always just said because I'm the oldest, and my mom was a teenage mother too, right? So
Okay.
my mom had me when she was 17, so she's pregnant at 16, and
Mm-hmm.
so I kind of just thought about it in that sense. She's just first time mother and just trying to be by the rules, and then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, later on in life I found something else out too, but always just in that feeling. But I can never ask anybody. I can never ask my mom especially, and that just made it hard not to know anything, but also just started to play with my own mind,
Mm-hmm.
thinking, why doesn't my mom love me? Why? And then that drinking story of my mom is she's out partying, and I'm trying to chase her around a tree, and her friends are hiding her, and then her friends are trying to stop me, and all I could think about is, why doesn't my mom love me? Why doesn't my mom want me? So that was always ingrained in me, right? And
Mm-hmm.
wasn't allowed to ask, and I was too scared to ask just because I knew we don't have that communication, and it just wasn't good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So were you all in? Like after you got loaded there, did you find something that you needed out of that bottle? And what did it look like after that?
You know what? When I go back on those memories, I love playing sports. So when I played sports, I did not have to think about anything, and that's the exact same feeling that the alcohol came in. It just kind of took away what was going on at home, the way I was feeling. It just took everything away, and I was like, this is in a way what I want. So I don't want to feel anything, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
dabbled into like some marijuana later in life, but I never really smoked, so I didn't inhale. So I don't know if I ever. I just never. It just wasn't something that I like enjoyed. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So when did you start? Because I mean, you mentioned in the trailer there that your drug of choice was cocaine. When did that start coming around?
Yeah, that was after high school. I was 19 years old, and yeah, first time I tried it, I got hooked.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always said this: I fell in love with it, and it fell in love with me. It took lots of pain away. It took lots of the way I felt,
Mm-hmm.
and I realized I can drink longer, and I won't have the hangovers and things like that. But then I didn't realize the effects of it going on later. I just like that feeling of not thinking of anything, and it just put me on a cloud, right? And yeah, just something that I
So
fell in love with right away.
what was the lead up to it? Like, were you when you saw it there? I don't know if you saw it on a table or if a friend said whatever. It doesn't matter. Was there
Yeah.
ever any like this is wrong? I shouldn't do this, or was it like no, give me that shit right now?
No, I hung around with a little bit of older guys at the time too, and they were people that I would like look up to, and they kind of took me under the wing as a little brother. And then they were they were going into the bathrooms, and they were drinking longer, and I'm like, how am I always, how am I always passed out and things like that, and they're still up drinking normal. And then I found out later they were doing blow, and that's when I said, like, I want some too, and no one ever stopped me. They just gave me the straw, and
Mm-hmm.
then I was like, "Holy man, this is what it's about." Yeah.
Hang on.
I just have a question.
Oh, by all means.
I found it really interesting your correlation with sports and substances. Like I had some of the same sort of connection in the sense like I could lose myself in the sport and not think about all these other things. But also on top of that, like I really loved the adrenaline, especially if we were on like a winning streak or whatever the case may be. So I'm curious, when you were 19, were you still playing sports? Like you said, this
Yeah,
was
actually,
after school or after high school. Were you still involved in athletics at all, or?
yeah. So when I first went to the university, an intern at our school was played on the soccer team at the university, and he talked to the coach, and I started to redshirt with them. And once I turned bar age, though, then I just cut loose. I said I'd rather go to the bar than go train every day after school. So So I just quit soccer, but then I still played recreational senior sports, kind of things like that. But
Mm.
uh, it was I enjoyed it more because I always got to drink after the game or drink during the game. Yeah, yeah. So and then there were always girls around, and that's what made it more fun.
You could talk to girls
Yeah,
now.
yeah. Just
Mm-hmm.
and you're older, and you're just living life. You don't even care about anything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What was mom saying around this time?
You know what? My mom never really said anything specifically, but just kind of started getting mad. Like calling me a drunk at times, like when she get frustrated or I'm like I already sent you money. Why are you asking for some more?
Mm-hmm.
And then I would just stop talking. Well, if you're not going to give me none, then I don't have any other reason to call, and that's so there was times when we didn't even talk for months or weeks, right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm. And this was in
yeah, but
Battleford?
yeah, just started getting mad at me, and but never asked if I was or like if I was good or what's going on. It was more or less just to give me shit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so at this time, you started using cocaine pretty regularly. Were there any warning signs, like in your own mind? Like, were you starting to think like maybe this ain't healthy, or how did that play out?
Uh, if when I got kicked out of university, my second year, so
What
I
were you
would have
taking?
been I was in education early on, and I as soon as I started drugs, I was already missing class before that, so that wasn't the main one. But it was after that I just didn't care because I was always out and um, go to bed late. Sometimes I didn't sleep, so it was just a matter of time.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? That that time I got kicked out of university, I was out partying on the weekend and back in Battleford, and I was at a hockey tournament there, and yeah, I for some reason I wanted to still party. Well, not for some reason, I was still partying the next day, like a Sunday morning, and all the coke had worn off, and all the liquor had finally hit me, and I was blacked out, and I woke up. I fell flat on my face and scraped my nose up and my lip and my chin and knocked out this tooth, and yeah, and I just laughed it off. And that was the final straw at school. I didn't go write my finals just because once I did sober up, I didn't want to be out in public just because my face was all
Mm-hmm.
bloody and scabby and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
then I had to go get my tooth fixed. So I just hung low for a bit, but I still laughed it off. I was still partying around after that because I remember I was drinking from a straw because my tooth was sensitive. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so never really stopped me either.
Hmm. So let's take a quick break here. We're going to hear a word from tonight's sponsors, and then we'll look at a couple comments.
The research tells us there's no safe amount of alcohol during pregnancy. It can be as little as 2 binge drinking episodes to have a child who is impacted by FASD. I'm referencing the Safe Canadian Drinking Guidelines, and they reference a binge drink as 4 or more drinks on one occasion. I would say kind of put that into perspective. Someone who doesn't know that they're pregnant, that's 4 beer on one occasion. Maybe that's a couple of glasses of wine. Those glasses of wine might be a little bit fuller than the average glass of wine. So maybe those 2 glasses of wine is actually equivalent to 4. FASD doesn't discriminate. It can happen to anyone.
All right, first comment. New view, better you.
New view, better you. Thank you for your comment. Would like to know, did you go to university because you wanted to, or was it just the next life move after high school?
I think it was just the next life move to play soccer, and I think that was just society's rules of expectations and my mom's too. I wasn't an academic person. If I didn't get into education, I was probably my. I always tell this would be my second choice was going to be a cop because he just needed a grade 12. Yeah.
Do you ever look back? Do you ever look back now and think like, man, I'm glad I didn't become a cop?
I don't know. I don't know if I would have been. Yeah, I don't know.
All that with a gun.
Yeah, I know. So
Yeah.
it works in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you really didn't have any like personal desire to go to school.
No, I kind of just a guidance counselor had mentioned maybe you should go to you would be in education, and I want to do something with sports. Um, Teaching was the only option that I was open to being able to play sports and coach. So that was
Mm.
something that just kind of just went up my alley.
Mm. Next comment from Rose.
Rose says, I fell in love with dope and dope fell in love with me because I had so much to lose and didn't even realize it.
Mm.
Yep. Great comment, Rose. And Trina says, we try to cover our hurt and pain by getting high, but it never goes away. We just make it worse.
Yeah.
So true.
Mm-hmm. So, Shalen, we talked a little bit about, well, you spoke a little bit about relationships, how you had, girlfriends and whatever, and you mentioned that you didn't know that, like you could have a relationship that wasn't toxic or that you didn't even realize what a non-toxic relationship was. What was that like for you, early on, like when you first started having girlfriends or whatever that looked like?
I didn't care. I didn't care because I just moved on to the next one, and I was
Mm-hmm.
always looking for something better. And
Mm.
yeah, but when I was drinking, like especially I I just didn't have any remorse, and it I didn't think if I was hurting you. I just thought, you know what, like I would just spin it in a way where I'm I'm not the person for you then. So this is your choice if you want to stay with me.
Mm-hmm.
This is who I am, and if you like it, you like it. If you don't, then I'm gonna go to the next person anyways, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and I used to think quantity over quality is something that I've always said when I was early on in rehab, and that's something that and now that I think about it when I'm sober, and it's like, man, like what are you doing? Like you're hurting these innocent people just for your own selfish needs, and
Mm-hmm.
you're hurting these innocent people because you're hurting in side, and you want people to hurt with you.
Mm-hmm.
That is the wrong mentality that I had.
So you became a teacher. Even so, you dropped out of school, but there's something happened, and now you're a teacher. Did you ever have any stretches of recovery or sobriety at all, in between the time where you left school and you became a teacher?
No, lots of the times it was just mostly if I was broke or if doing a little bit of coaching. That was probably the only stretches. But once I got back from coaching, then I was like, well, I stayed in on the Friday, Saturday. I might as well go and reward myself on the Sunday. And
Mm-hmm.
then sometimes I take the Monday off. But if I was broke or if my buddies weren't the ones that were taking me out, then I kind of just stayed at home. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So tell us, help me understand how you dropped out of school and still ended up being a teacher.
When I got when I left school the first time when they told me to take a break, my band was funding me, and the university said take a year off, but my band said 2 years of that I'm ineligible for the funding. So I was embarrassed and ashamed. I didn't even go home. Went to my buddies, and they were going to do seismic in the States, and I ended up just jumping in with them on the bus and went down to the States for 6 months. And this was when there was no cell phones and no one really knew where I was, and my family didn't know what was going on. Yeah, and then I did that life and then I had enough for EI, but then I was like, I wonder if I want to be a teacher. I became a teacher assistant out in my reserve the following year to see if this is what I wanted to do, and I did enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to jump through hoops and obstacles to get back into school. I always say I should be a doctor. The amount of years I went to school.
So, but it sounds to me like you still have aspirations, you still have goals, you still, like you just mentioned that you enjoyed being a teacher's assistant. So certainly you
Yeah,
were finding some meaning in your life.
yeah. Slowly, it was just a sports, you know what? But also just connecting with the kids. Uh, I never ever told kids like don't drink because I was still drinking and using at the time. So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of talked life a little bit about choices and things like that. And that's what I still do like today, because people are going to make their own choice, either with or without my a story, or without my like a guidance. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I just hope they can understand and they can realize what the path that they're going on.
Mm-hmm. When did it start to go sideways?
Uh, when I went back to university, I was still partying lots. I started using more and more, but I thought I was managing it, but you know, probably more when I got into teaching right away, because I got tax. Working on reserve, I got tax free, and I remember the first day I started, I landed on a payday, and they gave me a check like in an envelope. That was the only one I was going to get. The rest was direct deposit, and it was a check for $2,000, and I was like, "This is the most money I've ever had." And
I'm home.
yeah, yeah, and then I was like, I got this for 2 more weeks, and then yeah,
Yeah.
it kind of slowly went off. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned in the intro that you started a new teaching job and you signed the contract wrong, and you ended up needing to take a loan out of the bank, and that was sort of what brought you that loan is sort of what opened your eyes to the realities of your problem. Tell us how that all happened.
Yeah, so when I went back to Battleford after Sturgeon Lake, they you can choose a 10-month contract or a 12-month contract. And I was talking to the finance person, and I thought I signed a 12-month contract.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we got paid once a month, and it was July 25th when I was supposed to get paid, and I didn't get paid. And then I started panicking. I phoned some coworkers, and they said, "Yeah, no, we got paid." I phoned the board office. They said we will look into it, and they sent me a scanned, or like an email of the contract I signed, and I signed a 10-month contract, and that's when I really started to panic. And then I was like, wait a minute, I'm a teacher. So I went to the bank and had decent credit, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they gave me. I asked for a $7,000 loan, and that's when they said, "We'll do even better, Shalen. I'll give you 20 grand." And I didn't take the 20 grand right
Did
away.
it make you
Uh,
nervous? Were you like, whoa, whoa,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah?
hundred
Because you
percent,
knew,
hundred
right? Like
percent.
you knew walking in
Yeah,
there what was
yeah,
going to happen,
yeah,
right? So yeah,
yeah, yeah. So I took
yeah.
that seven. This was a Friday, and Monday morning I went back for five, and then
Mm-hmm.
by the end of the week, I grabbed the rest of it. I said I might as well go all in now. Yeah,
Yeah. What was your
yeah.
plan? Did you have a plan, or was it just like, fuck it, spend the
So I was
money?
just partying. I was just partying. Just went on a bender, and I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't even thinking. I didn't care. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that was. But after that, man, that's when life really set in. I learned lots about myself and my circle of friends, and who was there for me and who isn't there for me, and the truth, and learned the party days and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Um, were you drinking to die?
You know what? When I would use in that last little stretch in that last year, I didn't care if I died, but I never tried anything. But I would always do all the blow right away, and just if I go, I go.
Mm-hmm.
I would talk suicide with my. There was one stretch where I was talking suicide with my auntie and my mom, and they were like, "Come home, come home." And I did try. I did quit drinking for 6 months there, but they didn't know about drugs, and I was still using within that 6 months. So and then I just started partying again. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of when it went worse again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us about the day that you came to the realization that you needed to live a better life. Like, did that happen just one day, or was it like leading up, like I should change, or was it something bad happened and I gotta be better?
Just in that year when I spent that 20 grand when the bill collectors are phoning and I'm behind in bills, um, and it was maybe about March that time I started to see an addictions counselor, but I was halfway in and halfway out. I was just telling him enough to like help me to slow down drinking. I never once thought about stopping or asked how to stop. It was
Mm-hmm.
just more or less like, how do I slow down? How do I control this?
Yeah.
And yeah, and there was no way to control it. And
Yeah.
then May long weekend actually of that time. I was with my cousin Ray at a soccer tournament here in the city,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember walking around and I was on a bender too. And I was like, I'm tired of this, Ray, man. I'm like, and I was getting emotional. I'm like, I'm tired of this. I'm
So you
tired of cheating.
so
Yeah,
you talked to him.
yeah, yeah.
So was that the
And
first time
and
that you'd
he
opened up?
yeah, and he's younger than me too. So he's kind of just looking up to me. And I knew that he wasn't really going to say anything because he didn't have that life experience. So it's kind of me just venting, you know.
Yeah.
And then yeah, that was the first time. And I said, I'm tired of this, man. Like I'm tired of not sleeping. I'm tired of cheating. I'm tired of stealing. I'm tired of lying. And then that Tuesday, I had an addictions counselor meeting, and that's when I walked in, and I just sat down. I said, I'm done. Like I'm done. I want to go to rehab. Like let's sign the papers. Yeah, and that's where we started. Then my addiction started to talk in my mind is like, no, Shalen, you don't need to go to a treatment. Yeah, no, just like,
No, I was
yeah,
just
yeah.
kidding. I was just kidding. I
No,
don't.
no, no. So it was tough, and I had a daughter. Well, I do have a daughter, and Shalisa must have been about 9 years old at the time, and I was like, and I told the addiction counselor like, no, because my daughter comes with me on all teacher holidays and the like in the summer, so I can't. And I remember what the addictions counselor said, Shaylen, you give up this a summer for the rest of your life, you will have all the summers with your daughter, and that's what convinced me. And I signed the papers. We just had to choose an option where I wanted to go, and that was Thorpe, just outside of Lloyd. Yeah.
Talking about kids always gets Donna. Always chokes her
Yeah,
up.
honestly, like if you could see goosebumps, like my whole arms and everything would have just like been spikies. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got
that's
two
a
littles here.
great story.
Yeah. Cool, man. Okay, well, let's look at a few more comments, and then we'll keep going. Let's see, what do we got here?
Uh, yeah, sorry if that's not right, but
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah.
he's got that warrior mentality. Proud of you, Shalen.
Yeah. Thank you, Yash.
Yash. Okay, my apologies. And Randy Lee says, it's amazing the self awareness that we gain when we get clean. Hurt people, hurt people.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And Twinkle says, but they can make the choice by being better informed by your story. I assume we all know what that was in reference to.
I think so.
Okay.
I hope so. We're going to go with that.
We're just going to roll with that already then.
Yeah.
And Elaine Clark says, honestly honored to hear you share your story.
Thank you.
Mm. And our good friend Sharon Leslie Acus. She says, I quit drinking for a year, thought I was swell. Meantime, I did more drugs than ever. I switched one to the other. I wasn't too bright 50 years ago. So I hear you doing, man.
Kichi Megwich.
Thank you.
Okay. So a couple things. This is an interesting. Who was it here? Randy Lee said, "Hurt people, hurt people." Now, I want to talk more about that space in between signing up for treatment and then actually getting to treatment. But before we do that, tell us, like, at what point did you start to realize the harm that you'd done, and like, how did you cope with that? Like, as far as like the past relationships, like you mentioned, like you women were dispensable and all of that. When did that start coming to light?
I think when I had my like a daughter, I me and her mom split up after that. We were together, but we weren't together. I wasn't invested.
Mm-hmm.
I was staying at her house, but I stayed in the basement kind of thing, and I just went out partying.
Mm-hmm.
But then, you know, just as I started, when I was those times that I was sober, I start to think about it, and that's when I would start to feel shame and embarrassment, and then I was like, I don't want to feel like this, so I just go
Mm-hmm.
drinking, or I text the next girl kind of thing, and then just kind of stayed in that cycle all the time because I was just lonely and I didn't want to feel this pain, so like either drugs, sex, or like alcohol. That is what
Yeah.
I wanted to numb with. Yeah, yeah. So after a while, I was feeling so embarrassed and shamed that I just isolated myself, and I was drinking and using a lot at the end by myself,
Mm-hmm.
sitting at home with the lights off and just in that paranoid phase.
So we know in Saskatchewan and in other parts and all over the place, really, when someone comes in seeking treatment, seeking services for substance use challenges, typically there's a waiting period, right? And you had a few months to wait, right? Like it was a couple of good months, right?
Yeah, when I signed the papers, I thought I'd be going the next
Let's go.
day,
Yeah.
and
Go right
yeah, and
now.
then and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, yeah, you're not going until the end of July, and I was like, what? Like, you got to be shitting me, man! Like, that's
Yeah.
2 months away. Yeah,
Did that scare
so
you? Or
yeah,
were you
it
like sort
it
of like,
like
oh,
honestly
thank
did.
God? Yeah.
No, I was scared because just I I was scared for because I didn't know how long that 2 months was, and I was at a point in my life where I just didn't care about my life if I was there or if I wasn't. So that was
Mm-hmm.
that was scary.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything just aligned on that day. It was crazy how it all worked out. Um, that was in the morning. In the afternoon, I went back to work, and our principal at the time had said, "Shalen, we have a meeting at the board office." And right away something went in like a red flag. Something went off because most of the time we have emails on when there's meetings and things like that, and I had a pretty good have a pretty good like a memory, and there wasn't I don't remember getting like this meeting. And I asked him what it was about. He said, jump in like it's nothing and I will drive. So I did. We went to the board office, and there was the director, three other superintendents, the principal, and the finance manager, all males. And the first thing that they said to me was, Shalen, we know about your party life. And that's when I stopped them and I told them, I just signed up for treatment, and yeah, they're about to have an intervention with me. So
Oh, wow.
just right on that, right on the exact same day that I signed up for a rehab, uh, they were about to do that. So if I didn't commit to rehab, um,
So
Raider was
you came skidding in at the last minute.
yeah. That was probably the first time I was honest about it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and they were trying to give me the month off for the rest of June, and I was like, no, if I do that, I know what I'm going to do. And I told them I'll try stay away from drinking. It lasted maybe a week because then I got into my mind like, Shalen, you're quitting and you're gonna go to
Might as well
rehab, so you
give
might as
her.
well. Oh, exactly what I did.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But then I got bumped up to July 5th. So I got bumped up, which was good.
Yeah. So what was it like walking in? Like when you
I
walked
was,
into treatment, was it like I'm home, like thank God I'm here? Or was it scary?
I was scared. I was scared shitless.
What were you scared of?
I didn't know what was on the other side of that wall. I didn't know what was on the other side of that like that hallway.
Mm-hmm.
I was scared when I was in the waiting room. I was scared when they took my luggage and went and checked it. I was scared when I had to get naked and they had to check my clothes. I was scared every step of the way, and I had paid my buddy to drive me that time. Um, and I was praying. I was like, "Don't you dare pick me up! Don't you dare!" And
Mm-hmm.
he was supposed to pick me up at 7 a.m. Freaking guy was there at 6 a.m. so so uh, uh, so everything was just aligning. I was starting to believe in that kind of world, and yeah. So that was, but I was scared. I didn't know what it was, and then once you're in there, man, the way I described it is they just ripped the band-aid off. They
Mm-hmm.
just ripped off the band-aid and they let me get settled in for a couple of days and then put me into programming, gave me my binder, and
Feed you
there
really
was no
good too.
oh, phenomenal.
The food at Thorpe is amazing.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's where
yeah,
I went to detox at Thorpe. That's where you went, right?
yeah,
That's you mentioned that,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
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 yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, okay, they ripped the band-aid off and it sucks, but I mean, for me, it was like a weight almost came off for me. Like when people started being like, "No, Dan, you're full of shit." And like really
Mm,
like, cuz I went to Pine Lodge and they don't mess around there.
mm.
But what was it like for you? Like, did you get defensive? Did you like argue with them, or had you surrendered at this point? And was just like, you know what, I'm ready to think something different here.
The first couple days I remember on those meetings when I was like when they'd stand up and I'm a Shalen, I'm an alcoholic and an addict. I did not say that. I always just
Mm,
said, well, like my name is Shalen. It took me 2 or 3 days to actually say it, and then it took me probably another 3 or 4 days to actually believe it, because I
mm-hmm.
was in that a denial phase for so long. But once I was starting to go to those group sessions, once I started to go to the one-on-ones, I starting to they're starting to help me with some tools and just the way my mind started to work. And then once I started going to the out of town AA meetings, once they take us on that little bus, and hearing other people's stories, and I'm like, man, I'm not the only one, and this is the exact same thing that I'm feeling. This is the exact same thing that I'm going through. And then that's when I realized,
Mm,
like, I am not alone in this. Whereas
mm,
before, it's like you don't know what I'm going through. Like, you don't know what's going on in here. Well, I don't, Shailen, because you don't ever talk about anything, and
yeah.
and I and I just deflect, and I'm a big deflector. I joke
Mm-hmm.
around and I make cheeky comments, and I'm still like that today. When I get uncomfortable, I'll start deflecting and joking
Mm-hmm.
around.
Mm-hmm. Humor is an excellent vehicle, but it can also be a really big shield.
Yeah.
So we got a bunch of big comments here. We'll get to you guys. We'll get to a few more here before the end of the show. But was there any big aha moments in treatment? Like, was there anything that, looking back now, that you remember, it was like this was like a moment where something changed for me?
um, I don't know if there was any big moments. I think the whole experience was it, because I had tried to quit so many different ways before, but I think just going through that whole process of all the workers and just the way they talk and give you encouragement and saying I'm proud of you for sharing your story, and when they talk, and then when they pull you aside and they give you some advice, and then they say, like, you are a leader, and what happened to you wasn't your fault. That whole experience is something that I never took for granted. And
Mm-hmm.
but I'm very grateful that I went through that, because that's when I started to actually talk about a little bit things more and more.
Mm-hmm.
And just, and I still have those, like the big book and the NA books where the other people wrote in them and wrote their
Oh
messages
yeah.
when you head out. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I still do read them whenever I have a struggling moment, just to remind myself, like, you can do hard things, Shailen, and you have been doing hard things. So forgive yourself. That's the hardest thing I have to do, is forgive myself. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of people that I hurt, and then the people that I did not see yet, and I'm just like, how do they think of me when it's like it's things that I'm sorry for, and it's things that I haven't been able to say sorry to. That's the hardest thing, is to make amends, but it's also harder for me because now I hold myself to a standard, and I hold myself like accountable, and it's
Mm-hmm.
hard because I start to overthink, and then I go into the past. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think about the future as much as we were early on, when you were talking about next week. Like, I don't
Yeah.
get caught in the future. It's the past that I get caught into, and I have to let go, and I have to forgive myself, and it's hard, and I have to work at every single day.
Mm-hmm. So when it came to, how long were you in treatment for?
45 days.
Damn.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, what was it like leaving? Like, were you excited to leave or were you scared to leave?
I was scared again. I was scared because I knew that was my bubble. Because I knew that was
Yeah.
my bubble, and
Yeah.
I knew
Yeah.
that was my safe, like my safe zone. So a week before I was gonna head out, this one girl had to pay some bills or something and get her phone,
Mm,
and so she went and got her phone, and we weren't allowed our phones. And then she came back and she was just rattled, and I was like, "What's going on?" She's like, "I just got my phone back, and I got all these texts, and I seen all this stuff, and I didn't think of it." And I was like, "I don't want my phone back," because no one had known I left. Just the principal at the time, and maybe my mom and my auntie kind of knew, and my
mm,
cousin Ray, but no one else had really known. And I was like, "I don't want my phone, man. I don't want to see, where are you, what's up, let's let go out, come over, kind of thing." And no word of a lie, when I got my phone back on that day, there was no text messages on my phone. I was gone for 45. I was gone for 45 days. The higher power, universe, God,
yeah.
creator, and answered my prayers. Right? Yeah. Yeah.
Weren't you like a little bit like insulted that like nobody was wondering where you were?
I was relieved because I was still in shame and embarrassment. I didn't want anybody to know, and I didn't know how I was going to tell people where I was. And then the Creator and God and higher power um, answered my prayers again because I didn't want to go and I didn't want to see anybody.
Hmm.
So that week I got out of treatment. I went and played in a soccer tournament, and I ripped my Achilles. The first time in my life I've ever been injured. Ripped my Achilles less than a week out of treatment, and I wasn't mad. You know, it was what I was wishing for. I was
Hmm.
praying that I was going to stay at my mom's house and no one would bother me, and it wasn't the way I wanted it,
Hmm.
but it's the way that it happened. So I started to think of that sense. But it was just my reminder that Shalen, you are on a new path and journey.
Hmm.
Um, you have to learn how to walk
Hmm.
on this journey on yourself, and you have to learn how to ask for help because crutches and things like that, like asking for help is something that I struggle with, and
Hmm.
I'm working on that. But yeah, I was in a cast for 13 weeks, and it was a struggle.
Yeah. So I noticed that you're talking more about like as soon as we start talking about entering recovery, you start talking about creator and God and universe and all of these things. Like
Yep.
it suddenly has a very heavy presence in your story, and I definitely want to talk a little bit more about that. And also, I want to remind everyone to stick around to the end of the show because we've got next week's guest. We've got a very powerful clip from our conversation we had with him. So stay tuned to the end to catch that clip. But for now, let's look at some more comments, and then we're going to continue this conversation here with Shalen. We've got Manny in the chat. What's going on, Manny? Good to see you. Past
Hey,
guest.
Manny. So he says, we addicts are among the strangest warriors ever assembled. We deal with all of the same issues and problems that everyone else faces. But on top of that, we deal with addiction and we fight and we never give up and we support each other. I love you guys. Hey, Dan and Donna.
Hey, Manny.
Hi.
That reminds me of a quote that a woman, her name is Melanie Exner, a friend of mine since I like got sober. I don't think I've ever met her in person though, only on Facebook. And one day she said, us addicts are a rare and beautiful breed of freaks." And that just like stuck with me. And like I still like to this very day, however many years later, I still love that saying. Twinkle.
And Twinkle says, I know people who have the opportunity for programs, but because of the wait times, they end up not going. Time is of the essence.
That is a fact, my
It
friend.
is. And Elaine Clark says support services are just not available for addiction or mental health. I'm in Ontario, and a couple years ago, a friend's son came to me for help. He was heavy into fentanyl and many other things. However, although he wanted help, we couldn't find anywhere to help. Sadly, he is on the streets begging, and God knows what else to support the habit. It's a sad, sad reality of things today.
Mm-hmm.
And New View Better You says, one reason I am happy to see the recovery community growing. We have so much more acceptance instead of shame now. I hope the clinical side can catch up and fast.
I think we got time for one more. Who should it be? You pick. There's 3 left. You pick one.
I think Yash.
Yash, okay. Yash gets 2 tonight, I guess.
Yes, he does. He says, like Shalen always says, don't count the days, make the days count.
Thanks for the comments tonight, everybody.
Yes.
Don't leave yet. We're not done yet. So, okay. So did you go to the program? Like, did you, like you mentioned going to meetings while you were in treatment. Did you stick with that after you left treatment?
Not as much, just because uh, just not being able to get around without because I was in a cast, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I didn't go. But after I was off the cast, I did go to meetings when I could, but now I it's rare that I do go. I still go. I went when I first moved to the city here, but more in the cultural side, more in the ceremonies now.
Mm-hmm. So what does that look
Yeah.
like then? How did you find culture, or did it find you?
Uh, couple of my real close buddies, three of us. we're all within less than a year of each other quitting our addictions, but unknowingly, not one of us mentioned we quit.
Mm.
um, but one of my buddies, he's a little bit older than me. I was close with him in sports. Well, we're all close in sports, but he was going back into the sweats and going back into culture, and he had mentioned, Shalen, you should come to sweats with me. It will be good. It will be good for you. And so he kind of just took me under his wing, and I started off going four times a year, and in the last couple of years now, last year before I got injured, I was going once a month, and this calendar year I've been going once a month again too,
Mm.
just to continue it.
Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit, and we don't need to go into big detail, but tell us a little bit about a sweat. What was it like the first time you went to a sweat in recovery? Was it like an awe-inspiring experience or not so?
Uh, no, because you know what, just being more open and praying. I was praying so much more harder at the first one. Praying that I stay on this path, praying that I can get through this, praying that I'm going to be protected and you're going to be with me. Because one of the things that I struggled with was being feeling alone and being alone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that I really prayed for, and it's you know and I still go pray for purpose today. But if there's times when life is going good, I don't skip the sweats. It's more of gratitude, and I just thank the Creator for putting me on this journey and giving me a second chance in life.
Mm-hmm. When you started praying, um, did you buy into that right away, or was it just like you're going to start, talking to your higher power or whatever that is, and you were just sort of going through the motions, or was that something that you felt right away? Like, did you feel a connection right away?
I felt a connection right away with the Achilles, right as soon as the Achilles popped. But even leading up to that, like that little intervention,
Mm-hmm.
the way it was all working out, the way it worked out with the phone without any text. But then the Achilles is when I was like, you know what, this is real, and this is happening.
Mm-hmm. What was it like going back to work?
Um, didn't tell anybody. I actually went back to uh, that Sunday, that Monday I was starting work. That's when I went back with a crutches, so no one knew. Kind of just no one really asked where I was. It was more or less talking about what happened to your leg,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. And then I kind of just deflect and ask how their summer
How's
went
your
and kids
leg?
like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then how their kids were and things like
Yeah.
that, and just started deflecting in just a little different ways, that those deflecting skills that I do have.
Mm-hmm. Something we haven't talked about yet, you mentioned when we spoke before, was your Auntie Gaylene.
Yeah,
Yeah, she played like she was sober for a long time in your life, and like you always
yeah,
thought that you didn't want that life that she was living because it looked boring to you. But when you entered
no,
into recovery, there was Auntie Gaylene. Tell us about that.
yeah. You know what? My Auntie Galen is sober longer than my mom, and my Auntie Galen has always been there for me, always
Mm-hmm.
checking up on me, always consoling me when I would get in shit at home, or if she knew something was up. She would come and say, like, I'm proud of you. Um, but it still didn't persuade me to see she was living the healthy sober life. There was too many other people in my life at that point that were drinking, and I wanted that. And
Mm-hmm.
then and then what I learned is, when life is going good, everybody's around me and life is happy and everybody's there with you to like celebrate. But when
Mm-hmm.
life is going bad, then you're gonna see who is really there in your life. And when I was in the bottom, that's when I started to realize that, and that's when I realized that my Auntie Galen was
Was
there
there.
for me, and she was always there in my life, and I just never seen it all these years.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's someone that I look up to, and she checks up on me weekly, checks up on me like a daily, and I don't take it for granted. And I always check up with her, and she always invites me over to come eat, and that's somebody that you want in your corner. And I had her in my corner this whole time, and I didn't even know. I didn't even know. I didn't want to see it.
Mm-hmm. Would you ever like sorry Auntie Gaylene for for being a dick all those years?
I have text that I struggle doing that in person. Yeah, that's something that I work through at therapy. Is he has a little bit of challenges with me to say I love you to people, and it's a struggle. It's with my mom. It was with a hug. I can hug my mom when I see her and when I leave, and I do love my mom, and but to say it, it's uncomfortable for
Mm-hmm.
me, and when I'm about to, I know I'm going to stutter, so I don't even bother, and then I'm just like, hey, I will see you later, mom. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Cool.
yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's it. Don't leave yet. We got a clip to watch. Shalen, is there anything that you'd like to say? Is there anything that we missed? Anything you want to touch on before we let you go?
No, I have this little story of this farmer. He has two pails,
Mm-hmm.
and he goes and gets water every single day with those pails. And one is this beautiful pail, carries all the water, big gallons. And the other one is broken, has holes in it. And then he walks back to his farm, and that broken pail never brings back any water. And that broken pail's like, just throw me out. It's like, get rid of me. I am like a useless. I am broken. I can't even bring any water back. So he goes and takes that pail back to the water, and he said, "Look on the side that the pail that carries the water. Tell me what you see." And he says, "All I see is dirt." And he says, "Look on your side where it's all where you are broken and there's holes in you." And he says, "Tell me what you see." And he says, "I see beautiful grass, and I see flowers, and I see trees, and I see birds. And you may think you are broken, and you may think you don't like deserve this, and you shouldn't be like around, but you don't know who you're inspiring and who is watching you and what you're bringing into this world." And I think of that every single day. Every time I have a negative thought in my mind, every chance I have to go and share my like a story, someone hopefully can take something away, so they're not going to suffer in silence anymore.
The broken pail waters the path.
Yep, exactly.
That's beautiful, man. I
That
love that.
Yeah,
is incredibly beautiful. I
yeah,
really
Yeah.
love that story. Thank you for sharing that,
yeah.
Shalen.
Yeah. All right, man. That's it. We'll let you go. I'm sure we'll have you back in the studio. You're right here in Saskatoon, so there's no reason you can't do a Freestyle Friday with us. So we'll be in touch again. Thanks so much, Shalen. We'll let you go. Take
Aw-
care, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you.
I didn't lose my job. I still had the house. So on the outside, everything looked okay. I grew up in a normal family, private school. I ended up going to VCU in Richmond. First night there, I went to a party and I drank for the first time ever. That numb feeling where everything went away happened. Throughout my years, I ended up racking up 4 DUIs. I had to serve some jail time. Woke up January 1st, 2017, car sideways in the driveway. Don't remember coming home. I texted a friend of mine who had quit drinking 2 years prior. I said, "I can't keep doing this. Can you help me?" "Yep, we're going to go to a meeting tonight."
Shit.
I didn't lose my job. And I remember hearing a story about a guy who had spent 10 plus years in prison for killing a family drunk driving.
Say, this is Hard Knocks Talks.